Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. We are playing through version 1.00 of the Japanese release, and last time, we had another one of those episodes where we didn't really go that far. We basically went from towards the top of the windmill in the Forbidden Woods, the first one, to the bottom. And there was an NPC that was supposed to be there that was not. I didn't let that stop me. I went and talked all about him for probably way too long. And then I talked about some translation theory, and then we talked about some new enemies, and there was just more and more stuff to talk about. I talked about the canon at some length, even though, not the most crucial item for the lore. I think most of the, crucial items for the lore, I take it back. I was going to say, most of them in my collection here, I feel like I've talked about. But there are a few things here, one or two, that are of some decent significance to the lore that I have maybe not touched on yet, that I've still been keeping and sort of saving from the giant dispersal of items that we get towards the start of the game, particularly as we get a little bit dependent on luck. This is item right here that I'm settled on here is one of the relatively important ones. So here we have the sedative is the official translation. I think it's very appropriate. Fairly literally, we have so the first character means suppression in the item name. The second character means quiet, and the final character means medicine, right? So it's this medicine that calms and suppresses your heightened emotions. It is a sedative. I mean, makes a ton of sense. I'll do a quick, when I'm editing this episode, I'm not going to do it now, but I'll do a dictionary definition search to see if this is actually the term for sedative in Japanese. I don't remember off the top of my head if it is. I think it is, but it wouldn't surprise me if it is. But there is a chance that they just made something up. I don't think they did. Anyway, let's go on and briefly read through the description here. Okay, so drinking medicine or liquid medicine, because I don't think it's very common, at least in North American English, to talk about drinking medicine. We talk about liquid medicine that, you drink it, but we don't call it drinking medicine. Literally in the Japanese, it's the idea of drinking medicine, but, anyway, liquid medicine, I want to say produced at Bergenworth, but there are some versions of the word produce that have been a little bit of a play on the word for, to birth. This isn't necessarily one of those cases, right? It's the place where it issued forth from is Bergenworth. I'll put that word up, the dictionary definition on the screen too. And, maybe I'm misremembering one of the meanings of that term, but I don't think I am. Certainly it's not as direct as using the kanji for life when you're talking about creating something, right? So this is liquid medicine that has its origin of production at Bergenworth. Of Bergenworth production, let's say. Anyway, this is one of the difficulties of me doing this in the moment, is I tend to overtalk everything. But we'll slowly make it through here. That's the very first sentence, but not the end of the first line. The second half of the first line here, has the effect of calming the nerves. And I don't remember when exactly I bring this up in translation board, but I know I talk about it, and I think it's an important thing to keep in mind, right? Is you have this idea of ki in Japanese, and there's a tendency to want to make it seem very high flown sometimes in certain contexts, but really it's fairly run of the mill, and I just get a little bit leery when I see it in an expression sometimes, and it's it has the effect of suppressing the spirit, right? If you want to be a little bit affected and literal at the same time. But really, it I think the official translation is something like calms or soothes the nerves, and that's basically what it is, right? There's no necessary fancy mystical thing to read into this about the state of your spirit in your body or anything like that. It's just it calms you down, right? It has the effect of suppressing one's spirit, right? I think it's a little bit misleading to talk about it that way. It has the effect of calming the nerves. And nerves, of course, potentially relevant in a medical context here. Let's go on to the second section. Okay. For researchers of holy mystery, the Oh, here we go again. I'm going to potentially sound very strange, right, and spiritual. The crazing of spirit is an utterly commonplace symptom. So, the idea isn't that you have a crazed spirit, although that's literally some of the stuff that we can see happening in the Japanese. It's that your mental faculties are in disarray. Not just mental. Your like temperamental faculties as well as your mental ones are in disarray, right? So your emotions are out of whack. You're not feeling like yourself. You're feeling sort of maybe manic, might be a way to put it, right? And it's this idea that if you're researching the divine mysteries of this world, you have a tendency to get a little bit manic, right? Because we know this medicine is going to address this issue, right? We can talk about how it is the spirits riding high, essentially, right? Anyway, let's continue. We have this idea here, right? That those who are researching holy mystery very commonly run into this issue with their nerves, and varieties of thick human blood suppress that sort of disrupted spirit, right? So, again, I sort of knew where this was going, but you could also get it just from the item name, really. So your spirit gets crazed, and then this thick human blood is a good way of, bringing back down the rising crazed spirits, right? So it's suppressing that manic, energy, that sort of craziness that creeps into the nerves, right? So you get this disturbing effect from plumbing the mysteries of the world, and thick human blood, right? This is called the sedative, right? The sedative item name, very, medical, official, all that. It's not actually medical in the sense that we would think of in the real world running around today, right? It's thick human blood. That's what's acting as a sedative, right? It's having a sedative effect, and it's being treated as if, like, just look at the bottle. It looks like it's some sort of medicine, right? But actually, it's a specific type of thick human blood. And then, final line here, that, classic bloodborne thing. What is that? It's presumably the thick human blood, probably even the specific variety of thick human blood that's being used as a sedative, eventually or in time, was the seedling, like the sprout that connected or connects with blood healing. So this is the sort of, we're getting a little bit of a plant-related metaphor going on here, right? Because we have this idea of the germ of an idea we talk about sometimes in English, right? This is the germ of blood healing. Is the idea of, over time, this idea of drinking thick human blood to calm the nerves becomes a connection to blood healing. And the Japanese, I think it's possible to take in the sense that, whoever these scholars are, because they're in the habit of drinking thick human blood to calm the nerves, they're used to the idea of drinking blood all the time. And blood healing is the consumption of this special blood. And so that's how you get this connection. That's one way to interpret this. If I remember correctly, I think the official translation interprets it slightly differently, or maybe not slightly, maybe very differently. I remember I have done an episode of Translation Port on this. It's been a long time, and so that information is no longer at the top of my mind, but if it's relevant, I will edit in my alternative take here. And sure enough, upon review, I believe an alternative take is relevant. The official translation of the final line reads, "Naturally, this often leads to a reliance on blood ministration." What seems to have happened here is that rather than reading into the phrase chi no irio, or blood healing, as a wide practice, The official translators remained focused on the individual case of a scholar who starts out drinking blood to calm their nerves, only for this process to eventually blossom into a reliance on blood healing or ministration. This more individual reading, like the wider one that instead sees the whole practice of blood ministration growing out of sedative use, is entirely in line with the Japanese, so it's really up to individual interpretation which version of the lore you prefer. Right, now I'll hand things back to Gameplay Matt, who's busy explaining why I decided to open the episode with a reading of such an ambiguous description. But I did want to bring this up because it's an important item, and I have a sneaking feeling we're going to be spending most of our time doing mechanical stuff in this episode, so I wanted to front load it a little bit with some important item discussion. We got to go through our lore relevant items that we've got a little bit of a backlog of as we go forward. But that's the sedative, and now, having covered that, and possibly had a little bit of an interstitial edit in there for me to make an additional point, I think it's time for us, this is the wrong headstone, I think it's time for us to resume our explorations of the Forbidden Woods. Okay, we're back in the woods, and having unlocked this shortcut, we can just run through this way and take this elevator down. I said take this elevator down. And by the time we reach the destination here, we are right back where we left off progress-wise at the end of the last episode. Not even going to look at that hissing snake enemy with the axe dragging around on the ground that I know is walking away from me, because if I just continue going this way, it won't be an issue. Okay. Here we enter the real second half of the Forbidden Woods. And I'm going to be a little bit completionist, so I'm going to be sort of retracing my steps back and forth around this area a lot, and possibly getting lost. So, hopefully not. Hopefully not. I like to do this in sort of 3 different waves, where I sort of go down the left path, and then I go down the right-hand path. I should be using L2, apparently. Go down the left-hand path, go down the right-hand path, and then eventually go down the central path. And then there are occasional, there are certain areas where we need to make jumps, but I usually save that for after I've done the various journeys down the different pathways through the woods here. Gotta kill all these snakes. This is another version, obviously, of the snake enemies that we can run into in the Forbidden Woods. This is a little bit of a moment where I think we're forced on, back onto the main trail. We've been having all this fun time, going off to this left-hand side path here. But now we sort of have to come this way a little bit. Oh, never mind. Not quite as forced as I thought. There is another little bit of a set-piece moment where we get another one of those transforming enemies. Boy, I thought I was lucky to have not quite gotten hit by that first snake head attack, but then they all followed up and I took a ton of damage, so maybe not so lucky. Good thing I've been pumping up my vitality, though. Might not have survived that otherwise. Okay, I think this is maybe one of the places that I could jump, but I am not looking to jump just yet. Sticking far to the left here. Madman's Knowledge, very nice. Once again, I want to sort of make continued note of this as we sort of catalog. I don't think I want to fall down that way. Maybe I do. Is this? Okay, this is the funnel. So this is where I think I do want to fall down this way. It's going to spit poison at me, that giant one over there. Oh, okay. I was going to say, I don't think it can hit me, and then it hit me. So, don't listen to me on that front. Alright, are there other snakes around here? Sometimes there are other snakes around the items, and you can't immediately see them. But I don't see them. So, guess they're not a concern. Okay. And now, we can run up, and we can come this way, and we'll find ourselves headed back up sort of the right passageway. And we have to make strategic use of this tree trunk. Sneak around behind the giant snake. Oh, I didn't need to be using L2s. Uh-oh. In front of the giant snake is a bad place to be. And I forgot there are these other smaller snakes that will gather around. However, having dealt with the big snake, dealing with the small snakes afterwards shouldn't be a problem. Whoops. This is probably a 1.00 thing. Oh, I can still get it. That's nice. Dropped a twin bloodstone shard for me. That's a nice thing to get when I'm going to be switching weapons at some point. Ha! It missed. I thought my attack would take me directly into its attacking path, but it did not. I think I mentioned, or started to mention, and then maybe lost my thought in the heat of battle, is we're making a bunch of progress, we're getting a bunch of items and things. That item there, the something deep sea rune, is one of the first actually new runes that we've gotten here. Clear deep sea, it looks like. And okay, yeah, deep sea as opposed to lake. So this is going to be genuinely new. So we have another item to read. Hooray! I wasn't sure we'd get one because, like I said, I don't actually know. Right? I'm trying to catalog the unique items that we get in the Forbidden Woods and pay special attention to them and whether we are or not getting them at a super fast clip. We've been getting more than I remembered getting, which is nice. Because sort of one of my theories as I was entering the Forbidden Woods is we got to pay attention because I feel like the new item discovery rate is relatively low. The second half of my theory is, I think, proving accurate, which is we're not learning much about the Forbidden Woods even as we're getting novel items. But still, this is a better encounter rate than I thought. Even though this second half of the Forbidden Woods, there really hasn't been a ton of new items, right? It's certainly nothing compared to the very start of the game, but nothing ever will be. So I'm pretty happy with this. Anyway, let's get to the item description here. We have the Clear Deep Sea. That's the name of this rune. And as for the description, okay, we're getting one of the standard openings. This one is telling us that it's one of the Carol letters, Carol runes, that are representations of inhuman sounds, inhuman voices. So it's not one of Carol's runes, by, my own definition here. And then moving on past the first sentence, given the meaning of deep sea from the way it resembles sinking down deep, increases the slow poison resistance of the one who carves. And I think I have verified, I don't know if I've said it on camera in an episode, but I think I've verified by now that the idea of the one who carves was sort of unique to 1.00, and they sort of changed that verb. They took that out of the Japanese. But, it's still here in 1.00, so I'm going to translate it. And it does talk about the main effect, and that hasn't changed, which is it increases your slow poison resistance. Makes sense, right? They've given us a bunch of antidotes. They've given us the set that I'm wearing that is highly resistant to slow poison, and now we're getting a rune that helps us resist slow poison. Ah, but gameplay, Matt. You've forgotten an intriguing detail related to that poison resistance. These deep sea runes, it turns out, are a whole set of items whose text was handled differently in the North American as opposed to the UK releases. In the US English version of these descriptions, not only are these runes ascribed to Carol in the first line, but the full text for each one doesn't differentiate what sort of resistance it augments. This means North American players need to rely on the shorter, quick description to see what each rune affects. Meanwhile, the British English versions do specify which resistance is being bolstered in the lengthier text, and the first line ascribes the runes to inhuman sounds, much like the Japanese. This is more evidence of the general trend that the UK English versions of the game seem to be more up-to-date and closer to the Japanese than the North American version. Intriguing, right? Well, now I can let Gameplay Matt finish providing his rough translation. Anyway, final section, final set of 2 lines here that I'm moving on to now. Okay, this will sound familiar. Great volumes of water are a severance which protect sleep. Therefore, they, presumably the water, that's not even a, sore, that's just, I have to put something with the idea of, therefore, whatever, right? Therefore, foretaste of arcane is, right? If we're being very literal. So I need, in English, I need the word they in there, right? Therefore, they are foretastes of holy mystery. And I keep saying foretastes, but they're like augurs, right? They're forerunners, right? Maya Bude, like literally it's touch. I've talked about this before. I don't know why I'm going into this in such detail. I'm just obsessed with it, I guess. And then finally, the very final line, O ye who seek, aim for beyond that. So that, presumably, great volumes of water. And I think I've talked about this in Translation Born. Is this the Lake Rune? Yes. Okay. So these final two sections are exactly the same. You can see as I shift back and forth, there's stuff in the, like the very first line that says they're, transcribing inhuman voices. That one doesn't change. The final set of lines, which talks about water being, large volumes of water being a severance or a bulwark, as the official translation has it, that doesn't change. The other stuff, the stuff in the middle, the central two lines there do change. And this is a little, to go back to the point that I was saying before about this being a unique item. Okay, yeah, it's a unique item, but we've read 3/4 of it before, right? There's 2 lines out of, 5, right? 2 lines out of 5. No, 3 lines out of 5 that we've already read, because there's the very first line, there's the last 2. And only the central 2 lines are actually new, right? So, yeah, 2 lines out of 5 are actual new information, and it's mostly telling us mechanical information, right? It's sort of interesting that this is meant to depict or be similar to sinking down, right? The idea of sinking deep down into something, and therefore it's been given the meaning of deep sea, right? Yeah, that's nice, but it's nothing like, I opened this whole thing by talking about sedatives and how it potentially ties in with blood healing, right? This clearly we have a different level of information that's being conveyed here. So even though this is a novel item, I do think some of its like specialness is taken away by the fact that not only are we not learning a lot about the Forbidden Woods, we're not even really learning that much more about the lore of Bloodborne, because the most important part, which is the part about large volumes of water, we've already heard that. We've already seen that on the Lake Rune, which I've got equipped right now. So yeah, I don't know. Make of that what you will. I've sort of obviously gone back and forth. So, I don't know. Maybe you have a slightly different take on that than me. Maybe a very different take on that than me. But that's what I would make of it. And therefore, that's what I said. And let's get on with searching for more items here. We've got to complete our sweep back up the right side of this area. Let's see. Do I want to fall here? I think I just want to fall here. It's the most convenient thing. You know, by, like, I'm saying right as if I'm starting back at the top of this whole path. But in fact, wow, that reaches very far. But in fact, I should probably be using my gun, because it's relatively simple to get visceral attacks on this particular sort of enemy. Oh, hello, snake. Boy, I fell right into that ambush. Alright, my L2 with the big sword is the best way to deal with the snake balls. Okay. There we are. There we are. Problem solved. They were ready for me. They were ready for me to come at this situation exactly as I did. Which is interesting, because normally they set up ambushes to surprise you coming from, you know, what would be the other direction. I was talking about how I've turned myself around, because essentially I'm hugging the left again. I went from hugging the left to hugging the left. I'm just hugging the left in the opposite direction now. But I'm still oriented as if I was at the start of these 3 similar but ultimately different paths. Yeah, one more just for good measure. You never know. Funny how they have the floating item drops there. I am pretty happy that I haven't set off any slow poison triggers, and therefore had to deal with losing antidotes and juggling those in these otherwise somewhat desperate combats. Okay, I think this is back on the main passage, so I don't want to go there just yet. I'm going to stick to this path. Take out these snakes. Maybe back up a little bit. Give them an opportunity to miss first. Okay, get me out of here. I want a small... Alright, and now... I was a little early. Oh, man. I say they're easy to get viscerals on. There we go. Just watch me fail time and time again. Boy, this must be another transformer. All that HP. Oh, that's right, because if you come at this guy from the main path, it's another one where you can get sort of a free backstab, because it's another one that, like, transforms before your eyes. Oh, the R2 does work here, too. That's nice. Good to know. Boy, I'm using up all those blood vials I bought. Good thing I invested in them. Okay. We should be getting back up close to the start of this particular trail. Okay. I see you. Sneaking through the grass. Uh-oh. Boy, if I was wearing another armor set, this is another situation. I think I probably would be poisoned by now. Not yet. Okay, yeah, I'm hearing the big guy up above. Not a concern for me in the immediate moment. But we will be going up there shortly. Just gotta clear the ground here first. That's another way that you can come at this situation. You can start on the sort of upper path. You can actually fall down if you don't make a jump that I'm going to be trying to make later on. There's one reason I like to come this way first is because it clears out the enemies that would attack you if you just fell down and found yourself in that particular... I don't know. I want to call it a hole, but it's not really a hole, is it? Cleft? Yeah, I don't know what else to call it. Anyway, got a couple more enemies to clear out. Oh no! Why does that keep happening? I should be rallying back some of my health before I heal. And that way I wouldn't be wasting as many blood vials. Of course I think of that after I've killed all the enemies. Oh well. Oh well. I've got blood vials to burn. I can only hold 99 of them at a time, so why not? Okay. Okay, now this is back towards the start. Okay, we get a little drop here. And we gotta run. And jump. Yes! Haha! This will not be one of the episodes where I spend 15 minutes trying to make a jump and failing. Good. Alright, now, in what situation will we find the big lumbering enemy? I think it's behind one of these trees. I want to try and sneak up on. Yeah, look at this. I remembered. You hide behind a tree and face the other direction. Sets you up for a backstab that you cannot survive. Ooh, I absolutely needed those blood vials. I'm down to 10. But that's okay. That's okay. Alright. I think that's all the clearing out we needed to do. So let me go all the way back towards the start here. Can I make this jump back? I didn't think so. Yeah, this is that hole I was saying you could fall down before. And now, we've basically cleared out the left and right paths. And we can go, you can actually see there's like cobblestones, right? Or what's left of them mixed in with natural rock. In that this is sort of the main path through the area. And we don't have to worry about missing treasures. Actually, I'm a little worried about it. I saw a flash of light. I'm a little compulsive. Gotta make sure I didn't miss any serious treasures. And don't have to worry about them. Is that another treasure? Listen to me. I'm so convinced that I've gotten everything on the left and the right of this passage, and I'm still compulsively checking to see if I can get the item. Alright. Now, if I've done this correctly, here we go. Yep, the paths reconnect, and we have that giant snake to contend with. Okay. So this is where things break into threes again, and we get a whole bunch of, like, snakes and pits and things. So if we come over here, we've got a whole bunch of these transformed and transforming snake heads. I think these are some Molotov cocktails. Nope, shining coins. Okay. Oh, come on! Okay. I don't want to be fighting this thing where the poison can get me. I guess I don't know the timing on that grab to interrupt. Yeah, that one goes down with a single visceral attack. So, I think it's just the, like, enemies that they expect to turn into an ambush that are a problem. Alright. I was talking about getting Molotov cocktails, and I did not get any. However, it is very useful to have Molotov cocktails in this situation, particularly as a character with a lot of arcane. But actually I want to come over this way, because if I remember correctly, this particular variety of giant... Yeah, this particular variety of giant snake will run itself into that fire until it dies. There we go. That problem solves itself. So, don't need the Molotovs just yet. I will be relying on them soon. But not quite yet. We get a little bit more time. Do I have a big sideways sweep with this sword? I don't think I do. I've got the big forward strike. Can I? Yeah, okay. So if I charge an R2, I can one-shot the small version of the wriggling mass of snakes. Okay. There we go. Like getting those twin bloodstone shards. And this is the situation down here where Molotov cocktails are excellent. There's actually 2 of these giant snakes. And if we position ourselves right around where this corpse is, which, by the way, this corpse has clothes, so interesting contrast to what I was saying in the last episode about not a lot of the corpses having clothing. Because that one... Huh. Never really taken a close look at that one before. But it's in a very good position for getting onto one of these points where we can start throwing Molotov cocktails down. And you gotta be a little bit careful, because your character, like, does have a little bit of a step forward animation when you throw Molotov cocktails. There we go. Now we can get both of them. And if you're not careful, you will just find yourself in a situation where you step forward and off the ledge. And that is not a situation that I want to find myself in. Alright, one last Molotov. Will it finish it? Uh-oh! It did! I tried to convert to a plunging attack at the last second, but thankfully it turned out it wasn't necessary. Okay. And now we get another deep sea rune. This is just straight deep sea. The deep sea runes, let me just show you this so that you don't have to take my word for it. Deep sea runes, exactly the same, except for the one line that talks about what resistance they give, right? So this one, the one who carves, has increased, looks like frenzy resistance, as opposed to slow poison, right? And so I don't even really consider that to be a novel item anymore, right? And it was already not the most novel of novel items to begin with. So, boy, look at all these twin bloodstone shards I'm getting. It's going to make it nice. I think what I'm going to do is start upgrading and going to set up the whole thing with the rifle spear. I think that's going to be my next project. I'm very tempted by the, what's it called? The stake driver. Very tempted by that item. However, I don't think that's going to be appropriate. At least not in the near future, because I know for a fact that I will eventually want to... Uh-oh, I ran out of stamina. I know for a fact that I will eventually want to use the rifle spear, because this is 1.00, and we can sort of uniquely get a bugged version where we play around with the damage that it does with an arcane gem. So, I do want to take advantage of that. Man, gotta remember, this is 1.00. I can't be dodging forward to get viscerals. There we go. There we go. Good, good, good. Getting a little bit low on resources here. Bullets and blood vials. And there's our first bloodstone chunk. Okay. This is maybe worth talking a little bit about. This is a novel item. This is a very important, very exciting find. Not for the lore, though. And not really on its own, because I think like all the other like upgrade levels, you actually need 3 bloodstone chunks before you can use these to really be upgrading your weapons. But I just want to show off the Japanese here. Bloodstone shard, twin bloodstone shard, exactly the same, completely identical description. And I think I've mentioned this in Translation Born, and I'll probably mention it again. This is another point where the UK English and US English are a little bit divergent. And in some ways, the US English, I think, is closer. And in some ways, if I remember correctly, the UK English is closer. And it's different depending on what level of upgrade material it is. So it's a little bit confusing. But let's just review, because I know I've talked about this in this series, because I've talked about how everything is born by blood, and that's why it's bloodborne. But just to briefly review, these two descriptions are identical. We'll look at the twin bloodstone shards. So a fragment of a solid substance that is produced or is born. This is one of those things where it is getting that little bit of a play on words that I was talking about at the start of the episode. Produced or is born from cold blood, right? So it's this solid substance, and this is a fragment of it. This is a fragment of the solid substance that forms in cold blood. It's a thing that congeals, right? Solidifies after death. Congeals works well with blood, but that's not necessarily what the actual Japanese word means, right? But it like hardens is the idea. After death, so there is a certain substance, a certain variety of substance that is melted in blood that hardens after death. So you gain this, not just it's the substance that's in blood, but the substance only hardens after death. So you gain this not just from being conveyed to you by the medium of blood, but you gain it from death, right? This is another one of the themes that I think we can see in Bloodborne, is not just everything is born by blood, but also you gain strength from death and the dead. Anyway, the things which do not crystallize are called blood stones, right? So this is the blood stones versus blood gems things, because the blood gems are the crystallized versions. Okay, and then final line there. Okay, at the workshop, or the workshop just as a topic or subject, strengthens weapons by carving them into weapons. Strengthens weapons by carving these stones, these blood stones, into the weapons, right? Okay. So that's the standard thing there. And as we go here, we'll note that most of this first section is completely repeated. The only exception is the final word, which has been changed to lump or chunk as opposed to shard. And then the next two parts that talk about how there's this certain substance that's melted in blood that hardens after death, and that which does not crystallize is called a bloodstone. That part's all the same. However, the final thing about the workshop has changed. Now we have 2 lines at the end, and they're different. So we're going to talk about the difference here. As for the things or beings that make chunks, it is impossible with the amount of blood in an ordinary human. Hunt dangerous enemies. Hey, you made it through the description gameplay, Matt. Good going. What you failed to note, though, is that these upgrade materials form a notable contrast to the Deep Sea runes when it comes to how they've been translated. Here, the US English versions are closer to the Japanese than the British English ones, with the most notable difference coming in how this final section of the Bloodstone chunk is handled. Apparently, after an update, the UK English description for the chunks has become identical to the ones that appear on both the Bloodstone shard and the Twin Bloodstone shard. So this ends up being one of the few areas where the North American version of the item text is more in line with the Japanese. This is actually of some significance to the lore, as I'll let Gameplay Matt explain, beginning with a summary of the information we can find in the Japanese version of the final line. So this is explicitly telling you, right, the sorts of enemies that you've been fighting up to this point in the game, and any sort of normal human type enemies, like it's not any ordinary foe that will allow you to collect bloodstone chunks, just because they simply don't have the capacity for it. And if you want to get them, you have to seek stronger enemies. So this is an interesting potential dovetail, I think, to, it's going to be consumables, of course, to what we can sort of see with cold blood, right? And the bloodstones come from cold blood as well, right? Because we have the blood echoes that we get from the cold blood that are there, but there's also the substance that hardens and or crystallizes, right? And so we get the blood echoes on the one hand, we get the bloodstones on the other, and with the cold blood, right, we've got this regular one where we have the first tier, which is actually levels 1, 2, and 3, as far as the little sort of almost, I want to say parenthetical, but they're not parentheses. I'll just go with it because I can't think of anything better right now. The parenthetical numbers, right, 1 through 3, sort of implied levels. You get different amounts of blood echoes from them, so there is differentiation between them, but they all have the same description. They're all sort of the same tier, right? And this is just like a dew or a bunch of droplets. It's just a tiny amount, right? So once again, we're seeing a little bit of a tie to the amount of cold blood. And then, of course, we get the thick cold blood. And the thick cold blood, it's thicker, right? So by definition, we're going to get more, right? And that's the next 3 levels, right? 4, 5, and 6, right? And we can see the difference. 3, all of a sudden we have a new description, and that's going to be shared for 4, 5, and 6, right? So we're getting more. So you get the thicker one, and what's the source of that thicker cold blood? Stronger will, right? And then we go up to 7, and we get even more. And this cold blood isn't just thick, it's fragrant, right? It's that sort of almost drunk sort of thing. I talked about it before, and how you, by means of use, you gain not just any blood echoes, you gain frenzied blood echoes, right? You gain blood echoes of madness, right? And so I see this as sort of an escalation, right? You've got the product of an obsession. So these you could maybe view, I'm doing a little bit of interpretive work here, right? Because it's just saying this is thick cold blood which harbors blood echoes, and by means of use you gain more blood echoes, and a strong will produces thick cold blood, right? And that, presumably the strong will, resembles obsession, and which is the thing that supports human strength. So you have this idea that an obsessive will is strong enough that it produces more blood echoes, right? You can almost see, like, in addition to what I was talking about with amounts, you can almost see the sort of quality, right? So if we measure the quality of blood echoes of this one, presumably from an ordinary human being or just a random beast that you kill, you just get a few droplets, and it's just got a little bit of, like, regular will in it. And then you've got the more obsessive will that is represented by more blood echoes, right? You can sort of get this idea that the obsessive quality means that, in theory, if you were to have one obsessive blood echo and then one regular blood echo, and you measured the number of blood echoes and equivalents that the obsessive one gave you, the obsessive one would give you more, right? I don't know if that's making sense. It makes sense in my head. It might not make sense ultimately. I'm descending into madness as I talk about these item descriptions. But anyway, this one here, right, it's got the frenzied, right? We've gone from, regular to obsessed to frenzied, right? This total manic, even stronger will, right? So we're seeing this progression more and more towards obsession and insanity and stronger will, right? It's the stronger will that lingers in greater numbers and that has a stronger effect on the cold blood. And there's more of it, right? And there's just visually, right? You can go from the tiny little droplet to the, large bubble droplet thing to all of these. Look at all these bubbles in the frenzied one, right? I don't necessarily know what this, quality quantity thing I don't know how much to read into that, but it is interesting to think about. To me, the clear progression is going from like a normal state of mind, regular will, to an obsessive will, to a mad will, right? Frenzied will. That is truly, like, it goes even beyond obsession. Madness that goes even beyond obsession, right? And here we have, the amount of these two, right? These are the sorts of substances that you can find in the dead blood of creatures fairly normal, right? Human. And then this, ordinary people, they're not going to have these bloodstone chunks. Just, you got to find stronger enemies. Stronger enemies, they have a higher capacity for blood, right? They're giving you more cold blood. They also give you more blood echoes, right? So there seems to be this little bit of tandem motion in the idea that you get more blood echoes, you get more of this, maybe higher quality, maybe higher quantity. I'm a little unclear on that, but certainly the more like tied in the creature is, the stronger its will, the greater its obsession, and potentially the stronger it's tied to what's going on with reality. Like, there may or may not be a tie to insight here. It's very difficult to say. I mean, some of the enemies that drop them are straight up beasts, and beasts don't exactly have a lot of insight canonically, so maybe not. Sort of difficult for me to really parse, but there is a little bit of logic in the sort of increasing insanity, increasing strength of will, and increasing strength of things that are residing in the blood that houses, that harbors that stronger will, right? Because it's not just, increased blood echoes that you'll get from these more powerful foes. It's also more powerful blood stones. And I don't exactly know. I mean, it's blood gems as well, effectively, right? And really, this is game progression, right? It's, you're getting stronger, the enemies are getting stronger, and so you can upgrade your weapons to higher levels, right? That's really what's going on underlying all of this, but there is a little bit of a lore wrapper, like a logic that I think I can see to it. Obviously, I've been talking into not great effect for a long time now. Oh, I'm covered in blood. Look at that. I totally forgot. One of the fun things about Bloodborne. But anyway, there is that potential tie there, and I think that's interesting. I like that Bloodborne sort of goes for it. All right. So, let me get this last item here. There we go. Another one of the sort of upgrades materials that we were talking about. And now we've come to the meeting point of those sort of three passages. And the branching point to where everything gets super confusing for me. Like, from this point on, it's quite likely that I will end up getting lost. And I've been going on for a fairly long time, and I realize I'm low on resources, but I think I can make it. I think I'll be okay. I'm going to call this an end to my hunt for the evening now. Thank you all, as always, for joining me. I hope you had a good time, despite my sort of incoherent ramblings, especially towards the end. But, it is what it is. This is my hunt, and I'm going to call an end to it for the evening. But I wish all of you good hunting.